What's up guys, Russ from Boat Crafters. So if you're new here, my name is Russ. I own a company called Boat Crafters Company. It's located in Boynton Beach, Florida. And my Instagram is Boat Crafters Collective. So today is Saturday. I actually like Saturdays in the shop because I feel like the pressure is off of me a little bit to kind of not do all customer projects, and I tend to focus on my own personal projects on Saturdays, but today's going to be a little bit different because I did get behind with some customer stuff. Yesterday I was planning to finish making this hatch for a customer, but again, things just always get in the way. And to be honest with you, the second half of this week, I was just very low on motivation. I usually when I get into the shop, I'm just grinding, banging out projects, trying to, but sometimes, when you grind really hard and you're just always working, always doing projects, my elbow's been absolutely killing me. So I just got a new phone. I got iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I'm trying to be careful not to drop it because I didn't get a case for it yet. So anyways, yeah, my elbow's been killing me from doing so much standing, and also working out puts a little bit of stress on it. So long story short, I didn't get the projects done this week, or at least the customer projects done this week that I wanted to get done. So typically I would try to work on my own personal boat all day on Saturday, but I don't think that's going to happen. I need to make this hatch first. But if you watch some of my videos earlier in the week, I was actually working on these B-side molds, and yesterday I didn't film any of it, but I made really good progress on getting the B-side parts of these molds done. So I shot the tooling gel coat, which you did see in my video the other day, and yesterday I started laying the glass of the lamination. So there's probably 4 or 5 layers of chop strand mat on here. This here I did 3 layers of chop strand mat, and I think 1 layer of 1708, but then I took and bonded this wood frame to the mold. It's probably not as much glass as I would like to put on the mold, but because I'm going to be putting 8-pound density expanding pouring foam in these cavities right here, having that coring in this mold structure will allow me to have a less thick lamination, because the foam coring is going to make the mold significantly stronger. So right now these are all fully cured up, and this is a low profile DCPD resin, so I'm going to have to sand this before I put any more glass on it. But I'm going to take these clamps off because now these are fully bonded to the glass, and then I'm going to sand the inside lightly, and I'm going to start putting more chop strand and 1708 in these pockets, and then cut pieces to tab all this framing in, and then I'm going to pour expanding foam in these chambers. So the expanding foam is going to flow up, then I'll sand it flat, and then I'll put 1708 over the top of it, so the bottom of the mold is going to be perfectly flat, so it'll make it a lot easier to work with. So I'm probably not going to work on this today. You might see this in a next video, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to film one video where I start to finish show the process with building these B-side molds, so you can kind of see the whole thing step by step. So I'm going to get these out of the lamination room right now and just kind of set them aside. And I already cut all the glass to make these hatches, and I think later in the day what I'm going to do is show you how I top coat my direct molds. So in my video previous to this, I talked about making the direct molds on my CNC machine using this 30-pound density tooling foam, and I didn't film it either, but I finished putting the radius. You can see this brown stuff in the corner that created a little 1/8-inch radius here so that the glass can roll up and over and around these edges. If I left those at 90 degree, that's not going to work. So these are ready to be top coated. I did a light brush coat of epoxy resin over the whole thing, and that epoxy resin base is going to help the top coat bond to the mold. So I use a special paint for this, and I'll talk about it more if I get to that today. I'm pretty sure that I will. So first priority is going to be getting these into the lamination room, getting everything set up, get suited up, and make that part. All right, I'm all suited up, ready to make a part. So everything's set up. I got all my glass cut and trimmed. I got my coring material prepped. I got the recesses cut for the hinges and the latch, because you can see that there's lumps in the part. So in order for the coring to sit flat, I need to recess this out with the router. Then I poke a bunch of holes in it with the screwdriver, and that kind of really just mimics having perforated foam coring. And the reason that you would want to have perforated foam coring is the resin will kind of fall into these little marks, and it creates a better grab onto the foam, so you get better adhesion to the foam. So I do that on both sides. You can buy foam that's already perforated. So that the key here is you don't want the holes to go all the way through to the other side, because if you did that, and then when you put the coring down, and then I use these pieces of wood here with clamps to hold the foam. I push it down into the glass. So if the perforation holes were coming all the way through, all the resin's going to squish up through the top, and it's going to get on my blocks and my clamps. So we don't want to do that. You can buy foam that's only perforated like 25% or 50%, so the holes don't go all the way through. But so I don't have to buy perforated foam and regular foam. I just buy the regular foam, and then I just poke holes in it with a screwdriver, and it pretty much accomplishes the same thing. So I think one thing a lot of DIY people aren't aware of, or they skip this step, and I think this is one of the most vital steps to laying up a part in a mold, is to use a good quality radius putty. And what that is this is an isophthalic based putty. You can see it's just like a thickened putty, but it's made with isophthalic resin. So isophthalic resin is one grade below vinyl ester resin. And typically this is used in situations where you need high chemical resistance, like extreme and heat resistance, and it cures a lot stronger, a lot harder with less shrinkage. So if you're in a chemical environment where you're making parts that have a chemical splash like gasoline, things along those lines, you would build your part with isophthalic resin. But I take this resin and I mix it up, and then I put it into a cake bag, and then I take and put the putty all in these tight radius corners. So one of the most tricky parts with building these hatches is the hinge area right here. So when I started this company for like 5 years ago, I always had trouble getting the glass to sit completely flat in these areas, and when I would pull the part off, I would get air pockets in there. Because no matter how hard you try, even with 3/4 ounce chop strand mat, it's really hard to get the glass to lay in there 100%. So if I just put putty around this, and then I just take and squish the glass in over the top of the putty like pushes itself into the radius, so that you don't have to really worry about getting those small tiny air pockets, because even little tiny air pockets, like little specks, will crack on the surface, the gel coat, and those are a nightmare to fix. And I do the same thing here. So I put putty around here, all around the corner, the inside corner, around the hinge blanks, all around here, and then the first layer of glass gets pushed right into that putty, and it makes a nice strong radius on all of your parts. So I'm going to mix up this putty, get the cake bag ready to go, and that'll be the first step, and then I'll start laying the glass. I'm not really going to be able to film too much of this because I have my brand new iPhone 16 Pro Max with no case on it, and my hands are relatively clean right now, but once I get started, I'm going to have resin on my hands, and I'm not going to want to touch my phone. So I'll film this little part here, mixing up this putty and putting it into the mold, and then I'll film just a few seconds of running the resin gun so you can kind of get an idea. So I used to not use these. So these are just cake decorating bags. And they're shaped like this, and they're used for putting cake icing in it. So once you fill it up with the putty, you just clip the end, and then you can squeeze it out the end. I used to not use these because I thought it was just an extra step and it was unnecessary. But these cake bags actually save a lot of material. When you use the cake bag, instead of just kind of scooping it out and spreading it with not a spatula, but a plastic spreader, you use a lot more material. So with the cake bag, I can put this right exactly where I need it, and it saves a lot of putty. So I sell this on my website at bowcrafterscompany.com. I go through gallons and gallons and gallons of this every month. So I use this for bonding stringers. I use it for core bonding. I use it for filling voids and low spots. I use it for radius putty. This right here is probably the most versatile thing that I have in the shop. This doesn't cure to sand, so you can't use this as a fairing putty. It just always seems to stay tacky for some reason. So this is really just only used for radius and core bonding. So I sell this, it's about $90 for a gallon of it. But if you're doing work with polyester, I feel like it's one of the best products on the market for that. I mean, I know RJ makes radius putties and things like that. There's a lot of companies that make similar products. But I found that this works the best for me. So I don't want to put too much in. I don't want to waste it. I hate throwing stuff in the garbage. So this putty has some reinforcement fillers in it. Sometimes I would add milled fibers to this if I want it to be a little bit stronger, but I'm not going to do it on this mix. So I use the red dyed MEKP in this putty, and then I can kind of get an idea on my catalyst percentage just by the color that it changes. So you can see it's kind of like a light raspberry color. I could probably go a little bit more on the catalyst on that. But you want to be careful. You want to make sure you put enough catalyst in so that it cures, but not too much catalyst so that you put it on your part and now you're racing against the clock to get your glass over the top of it. Because once this kicks, it's no bueno. You don't want this to kick before you get your glass on it, because obviously if it kicks, you can't push it down into the radius. So you don't want to mix it too hot to where it starts to cure in your part before you get the glass on it. Transfer this into the bag. So these anchor hatch parts probably take me the longest to laminate just because of the shape of it. The corners take a little bit more time and patience to get the resin, or to get the glass cut and laid down smooth. So when I'm doing a rectangular hatch, I can do them a lot faster. I have earbuds in so that I can listen to music while I'm making this part. Damn earbud just fell out of my ear and down into my soup. Let me see if I can get it back up into my soup. Oh. These are some aftermarket generic earbuds, and they don't like to stay in my ear. Alright, so I do have the air conditioning on. It's probably not necessary today, but because I'm wearing this suit, and it is kind of warm out today, it's getting warmer. It's a lot warmer than it was yesterday. Just run the air conditioning, and it makes it more comfortable for me, so I don't come out of here soaking wet like I do in the middle of the summer. So there it is in the bag. Now I'm just going to clip the end of it and then start to put it into my part. I'm not going to be able to move the camera closer because I don't really want to touch it and get resin and shit on my brand new phone. I'm just going to clip the end of this. And you can see the putty. I put a little bit too much on and then I ran short. The little piece there, it's missing, not a big deal. So we're good to go. I'm going to film just for a few minutes running the resin gun, and then I'm going to shut the camera off. So you notice I'm not cutting my pieces to go all the way around. And the reason that I do that is because if I had cut this piece and tried to get this piece to lay on this corner right here, it's just going to be a nightmare. So what I do is I'll lay the straight pieces first, get them into place, and then I'll take pieces of chop strand and just peel it off the roll and do these edges separately. And that speeds up the process quite a bit. On my lids, I do a little bit differently. I don't do a skin layer on my lids. Because I'm using the radius putty, I just go right to the 1.5 ounce chop strand on the first layer, and I just push that right down into the putty. Finding these damn paper towels. All right, so I'm going to turn the camera off in a second, but what I did is I just took and wet this out with resin and these two pieces, and I let them sit for like 30 seconds to a minute, and what that does is it dissolves the styrene binder. So a chop strand mat has a binder in it that glues the strands together, but once the styrene and the resin hits that binder, it dissolves, and it makes it fall into the corners a lot easier. If you wet your resin out and then you immediately go and try to push it into the corners, you're just going to pull all the resin or the glass all out of shape. And so I'll just let it sit here for a minute, and then once it fully dissolves, I can just push it into the part real easily. So I'm going to turn the camera off right now. My hands already have resin on them, and then I'll show you the part when it's complete. All right, finished up that hatch. I'm glad that I did it. It looks like it took me about every time I talk to the camera, the compressor turns on. So it looks like it took me about an hour and 45 minutes to laminate this, but I'm glad I got it out of the way. Now I don't have to worry about it on Monday morning. So here's everything all laid up. So I know some people might ask what the lamb schedule is on this. So this is one layer of, the first layer is 1.5 ounce chop strand mat, then it's a layer of 1708, then it's a 1/2 inch coring, then it's another 1708, and then another 1.5 ounce chop strand mat. And just from doing years and years and years of this, it's more than enough for that part. I used to add one more layer of chop strand mat, but I cut it back because it just was unnecessary and I thought it was making the lids overly heavy. So this is similar lamination. It's got a 3/4 ounce skin layer, another 1.5 ounce chop strand mat, 2 layers of 1.5 ounce chop strand mat, and then a layer of 1708 over the top of it. And the 1708 just kind of gives it some rigidity and firms it up. So these are done. Probably going to turn the air conditioning off because it's not too hot out. let these kick, and maybe I can pop them off before I leave, and I can show you that. If not, I'll film it on Monday. I really want to work on my boat today, but I also have to top coat these pieces. So I might do that right now. I need to get this out of the way because I need to make this hatch for this customer. He already paid me like 3 weeks ago, and he started asking me when it was going to be done. I told him 3 to 4 weeks. And I need to top coat this as well, but this needs to be sanded. So I think I'm going to do that right now. All right, so this is the 30-pound density tooling board foam mold. This is the lid mold. This is the gutter mold. And this is an MDF mold that I made a couple weeks ago that I need to top coat as well. So I just finished sanding them. I didn't film any of the sanding because nobody wants to see me sanding. And I solvent washed them, but I'm getting ready to prep my top coat. So when I'm top coating molds like this, I use PPG PSX 700. PSX 700 is a polysiloxane, so it's very similar to epoxy, but it's a silane. It has a silane based binder. So what that means is it sticks to shit like crazy. Like this is very, very similar to epoxy, but has higher adhesion than epoxy does. And the nice thing about it is I can shoot it out of my spray gun. So I'm going to be using a 2.5 millimeter tip gun. You kind of need something with a large tip like this because this paint is pretty thick. This is a 90% volume solids paint. So when it goes down, whatever hits the mold, it has no solvents in it. So this is a very low VOC. And because it has no solvents in it, it's safer for you to spray. It's not like All Grip or Alex Seal. Polyester urethanes have a lot of isocyanates in it, and that's what's extremely toxic for you if you're shooting it, to be breathing it and to getting it through your skin. Because this is low VOC, it's easier to spray. So obviously, you still need to wear your respirator. It does have some solvents in it, but very low solvents. So this is kind of used in states like California that were very strict on chemicals and their VOC contents. The cool thing about PPG PSX 700 is being that it's a polysiloxane and it's not an epoxy. I used to top coat a lot of my molds, specifically my MDF molds, with epoxy primer. Like you can use 545, or typically I don't use that because it's too expensive, but like a PPG Amber Coat 240 is a nice universal epoxy primer that I can get a really good price on. The problem with epoxy is when you're shooting molds, it conflicts with the next step in the process, which is going to be shooting gel coat. So as you probably know, you can't put polyester products over the top of epoxy. That's technically not correct. You can put polyester products over the top of epoxy as long as the epoxy fully cures. Now, being able to sand epoxy and having it fully cure is two different things. I think a lot of people get confused there. So epoxy, after about 12 to 18 hours, it's cured enough to where you can sand it, but it's still going through its chemical curing process. So while it's still going through that process, you can't put polyester products over the top of it because that chemical process that's going on underneath the surface in epoxy is going to mess with the chemical curing process of the polyester. Those two chemical systems, they don't play well together. So you can't put polyester over the top of the epoxy until the epoxy fully cures. So in the past, what I've done is I would shoot my molds with epoxy primer, and then I just push them in a corner and let them sit there for about a week. Most epoxy products, fairing putties, things like that, usually fully cure in about 7 to 10 days. You have to look at the TDS sheet. The chemistry in every epoxy product is different. Some fully cure in 2 days, some fully cure in 30 days, some fully cure in 6 months. So the PPG primer that I was using typically would fully cure in about a week. So after I shot them, I would set them in the corner, and then I wouldn't be able to use them until that epoxy primer went through its entire process. However, PPG PSX 700 is not an epoxy, it's a polysiloxane, and the gel coat does not conflict with this chemistry. So if I shoot the PPG PSX 700 on these molds today, tomorrow I could come in and shoot gel coat right over the top of it, and I'm not going to have any problems with the gel coat not curing. So that's very, very, very nice, and it allows me to speed up the process a lot faster with these short run small molds that I need to make for custom fiberglass parts. The other nice thing about PPG PSX 700 is because it's a silane based binder, it's kind of got like a silicone component in it, and it leaves the surface very, very slippery. Like once you spray PPG PSX 700, like tape won't stick to it very well. I mean, it will, but it makes it nice because it's almost makes it ready to pull apart on it without putting very much wax at all. So once I come in tomorrow and this PSX 700 is cured, I usually just come in and do like 1 or 2 light coats of mold release wax, and it's good to go. So you're kind of getting like extreme adhesion, doesn't conflict with the gel coat, and it's slippery. So all those things work in my favor when I'm making these molds and I need to make parts really, really quick. So enough chit chat about that. I'm going to mix up this. This is a 4-to-1, so 4 parts paint to 1 part activator. I'm going to mix it up. I'm using like a 3M PPS style disposable liner in the cup, and I have the PPS adapter on my gun. I'm going to mix this up, shoot these on these molds, and yeah, this is pretty straightforward shit. All right, just shot the PSX 700. Man, I mixed up way too much paint. I hate when I do that. I hate wasting materials because that stuff is like $256 for a gallon of it. But I think I mixed up about 24 ounces, and I ended up putting like 6 ounces more in the garbage. So frustrating. I hate when I do that. I thought it was going to take more material to shoot these, but it really didn't. So put down a good heavy single coat, and that'll be enough. So there's obviously some orange peel on this, but these parts, after they get pulled out of the mold, they're going to get sanded and re-top coated anyways. Same with these. When I sell my hatches and stuff, they just come in generic white gel coat because 100% of the time after the customers install them, they get re-gel coated or repainted to color match their boat. So this is a wrap, and I was going to work on this, but I don't think that I am. I was hoping that this hatch was going to be cured enough to pop it out of the mold, but it's still tacky here on the edges. Usually around the edges, it takes a while for it to cure. This is probably dry. Yeah, the lid's dried, but this isn't, so I'm going to let it sit till Monday. I was going to work on my boat today, and I actually have some time. It's like 2:30, but girlfriend's getting out of work early, so I think I'm going to take off and just go relax. Plus, she has a big job in Mexico doing a huge wedding, so she's actually leaving next week for almost a full week. So I think next week, usually I would go home around 6:30 or 7 each night, but I think I'm just going to stay here next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just work till like 10, 11 o'clock at night on my own personal boat. So I don't mind leaving early today and not working on it. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do tomorrow, probably housework. But anyways, enough babbling. Probably going to wrap up, close up the shop, maybe go to the beach. I don't know. I need a mixed drink. See ya.